Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to make this budget tracker which operates under a 50-30-20 split, and it's also super customizable, so you can actually change the target splits that you have here. You can also see the target versus the actual, and this is basically the percentages that you're currently working at with all your bills. So the goal of this tracker is to map out all your costs that you have monthly and annually, and you can see it in regards to your salary, so you can get a clear view of how much money is going towards each of those categories. We also have a section here called payment pots. This is where you can specify which payment pots spending goes into, and you can see how much money that you need to put aside each month to each of these things. We also have some nice little analytics here to see the distribution of each of your costs and each of their categories. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do first is just remove these lines so we can have a really nice white background. So I start by clicking the first column, going all the way to the end whilst holding Shift. We've now selected every single column, so I just click on the border here, change the colour to white, and then click this option because that will make all the borders white. Okay, next thing we're going to build is the side panel, and I want there to be a little bit of padding in between, so I'm actually just going to change this first column and we're going to resize it. So right click and resize, and I'm going to resize it to 30. And then I'm going to do the same a couple along for this one. And click resize again, make this 30. Okay, perfect. And now we're going to actually build these side panels. So let's hold Shift and click this bit. And we're going to pick our color. Now for this, I want to use a nice little matcha green color that I've got. So I'm going to create a new custom color. And for me, this is this hex code that I'm going to be using, and added that. Now as you can see, it ends up getting these lines, so what we need to do is we now just need to create the lines in the color we just made. So just go back to the border and then pick the color you just created and do that. So now we have a space for a nice little side panel. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of padding here. So I'm going to resize this one again. I will also make it 30. And we're going to now add the categories. But before I do that, I just want to change the font for the whole document to be a nice font. And one of my favorite fonts to use is Poppins, so I will be using that today. So you just find Poppins. And now the font for the whole document has been changed. I'm also going to add a custom color to the font for the whole document. And the reason for that is I don't like black text. So just select the whole document, go to the text color, press add, and then enter the hex code that you want. This is the one that I like to use, 3E46. Kind of this nice little grey color. I have my own little custom palette that I like to use for all my spreadsheets. So now whenever I type anything, as you can see, it's in the correct font and the correct color. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're now going to resize these rows because they're a little bit short for my liking. So I'm going to select the top one, go all the way down to the bottom, select the bottom and click resize. And I'm just going to make them 30 just so they're a little bit taller. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to resize these ones. I think they're currently, so they're currently at 100. I'm just going to select these and I'm going to resize them to 120. I should have probably done this before, but we'll do this now. And I'll also resize these ones here to 120. Okay, this is looking pretty nice. Okay, next we're now going to start by adding the categories. So I'll start with the needs. And I'm going to bring this all the way to this J category, merge it. I'm going to click this alignment button, centrally align it. I'm going to change the font to size 16 and bold. I'm now going to copy it and I'm going to paste it here. and see this K column, we're going to resize this to be 30. Looking pretty nice. And then just do the same here. So jump the P, paste it, and then resize this to 30. Okay, awesome. And I'm going to now rename this to wants and this one to investments. Okay, awesome. Now we're going to add the column headers for this bit. So go all the way up to your little category, and we're going to change the background color to be that green color we picked earlier. And then we're also going to change the border again to be that green color. And we're just going to add the titles. So item, monthly cost, annual cost, and the savings pot. Again, do some nice styling, select them, pick the middle align, make it bold, and I'm just going to copy and I'm going to paste that here, and I'm going to paste that here. Okay, so now we've got some titles coming in. I'm actually thinking I might make the size of this a little bit smaller, so I'm just going to change the font to size 8. Okay, now we're going to add the calculation space. So I'm going to go about 10 blocks down here, and I'm just going to pick the fourth one across and give it a little bit of a border. I'm also going to press this one so it has a little underline border. Okay, now next up we're going to take this and we're going to paste it across. So we have our calculation spaces, which is pretty cool. Okay, and what I'm going to do is, because I want the annual cost column to be automatic, I'm actually just going to select it and I'm going to fill it in to a little bit of a different colour. So I'm going to add the text to be light grey instead of the dark grey, and I'm also going to add a new background to it. Okay, so now this is greyed out because I want this one to be an automatically calculated column. We're also going to do the same for this one. So underneath, I'm just going to take this, add a little bit of a gap, and paste this under here. Copy this column, but this time put it on the monthly one. So this sort of light grey colouring will be automatically calculated, and I realised I should have probably just copied this across now. There we go. Okay, so now we have the main calculation space done. I think we can start by adding in the side panel info. We're leaving a bit of a gap up here just so we can add some cool plots later. So, okay, what I'm going to do now is create a title for my dashboard. And you can call this whatever you want. I'm also going to merge these cells, make it the same typography as the other one, and you can add a little description underneath if you want. Okay, next I'm going to add my income, and that is my monthly income. Again, I like to merge these cells. And instead of 16, I think I'm going to make this one maybe 14. Bold. And then we're going to add in the amount. And then add a little white bit of text so that we can enter the amount here. Just check these are all aligned. I'm actually just going to pick all of these and make it so they're centrally aligned. You can actually change the currency by going up to the top, clicking format, and then going to number, and then picking the currency. I'm in the UK, so I'm going to pick pounds. So whenever you enter an amount, it will turn it into your own currency. Just going to copy this, and now we're going to enter the income split. Oops. So I'm going to start by giving this a little title. Category, target percent, and then the actual percent. So we want the actual percent to be automatically calculated later. Okay, let's enter the needs, the wants and the investments here. And then again, like this, I'm just gonna add a bit of white space so that we can add this in. I actually don't mind the line which appears in between, so I'm gonna leave that. You also don't need to format this as a percentage. Okay, next we're going to add the payment pots. And this is going to be where you can see where your money should go to each month. I think people call this the sinking funds. I just call them payment pots because, you know, I don't know what the correct term is. But let's just label these with some categories. And then annually. Okay, cool. And then I like to add my categories here. So the ones that I want to add are my bank account. That's just sort of my main one. My credit card, my holiday saving pot, and I have an annual payments pot, and then just generic savings. And this is going to be completely auto-calculated, so we don't need to add this little white edit box. And then the last thing I'd like to include is just a checker. And the checker just means that at the end it can calculate all the details here and see whether or not you missed anything out. So I'm just going to add this here. Let's copy this title. And let's do target. And then add the actual. Next we're going to do just add your total salary and then left over. Okay, so the next thing we can do is start calculating these sections. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do this income split thing. And basically this is where you enter what the split is, like the target percentage, and then we're going to add a place for it to auto calculate that. So first thing I'm going to do is let's just enter some random values. So usually I think the standard is 50, 30, 20. So 50% goes towards your needs, 20% to investments, and then 30% to wants. So we're going to go up here and we're actually going to add a little space for the investments to be calculated here. Okay, so I'm going to select these cells and then I'm going to merge them. So I selected 3 to 5 or whatever, centrally align, and I want this cell here, I'll put a little border around it for now so you can see. I want this cell to show me how much money I have each month to spend based off this 50%. So what you need to do is enter a formula to do that. Okay, so now we're going to add an equation in to calculate this cell, and basically what we want this cell to be is whatever percent you enter here, we want it to show the percent that you enter here based off whatever you enter here. So if I enter 2,500 as my salary, I want this cell to show me what 50% is, and that is because this is the needs one, if you can see. So usually to do that, you would enter something like, you could go up here and you could click sum, and then you could do this cell. Oh, I don't know why that didn't work. Sum of this cell times, and I'm just going to do a little bracket and do this cell divided by 100, and then you get a little amount here. Okay, so just to break that down a little bit, what I've done is I've turned this target percentage into a decimal so that when you multiply whatever the salary is by that, it will show you the percent, if that makes sense. Okay, so one thing I would like to point out now is, you know how earlier I turned this into a currency? So you can see that this is a currency that is set to pounds. Let's say you didn't have a currency here and this number is showing multiple decimal places, like let's say it's showing 1200.3333, whatever. That's going to be really annoying. So what I'm going to do for the sake of this is I might just remove the number format here so that we can get an idea of what things will look like if you haven't got a currency, and we'll put the currency at the end. So as you can see, I've just added like a random number here, but let's say your percent turns into this really weird decimal place and you don't like that. What I like to do is you can actually just go and add a round function up here. So in between the sum and the equals, you just enter round, open a bracket, go to the end of the equation, do a comma, pick the number of decimal places, so I'm going to pick 2, and then close the bracket. And there you go, it will basically round that to the correct decimal place. So yeah, that's another way that you can do it. Now let's just add a little bit of styling to this so it can look pretty cute. So I'm gonna put this in the center, it's already there, centralize it. We're then gonna make it font 16, and yeah, I think that looks pretty good as that. Okay, and then we're gonna add, let's merge these cells underneath and add monthly, and then centralize it. And now that I think about it, let's lower that. There you go, and then I'm going to remove the border by going and clicking white. I'll do that here as well. Okay, so now whenever you change the salary, let's say I change it to 3,000, this amount will show you how much you have depending off the percentages you put. So I'll put that to 3,000. Let's say you wanted 10% for your needs. It will automatically change depending on this. Okay, so now we're just going to really quickly go in and do the same for the annual side. And you could do this equation again if you wanted to, but what I honestly just like to do is I like to copy this. What I just like to do is change this to annually, and then literally just turn this cell into equals this cell times by 12. And then you can sort of see the annual versus monthly. So I'm just going to go and copy these now and do them for the wants and the investments. And a quick thing you can do is if you just go into the cell, you can change the percent that you're looking at. So see how this was C11 divided by 100. We're now going to change it to be C12. So let's just change this to be C12, and then as you can see it also changed the H, so change that to C6. I'm actually just going to copy the equation here, paste it in here, and then change this one to C13, which is this. Okay, nice. So now we have the automatic calculation for the income split. Okay, now once you've done that, maybe we can start by actually adding some categories here. So let's say you want to add a category like rent, and you want to enter the amount, the monthly amount. Let's turn this column into an auto calculator, so you literally just do equals this times by 12, total 12. That's the most basic way you can do it. But what we can do is we can also add the round function again, because like we said earlier, what if this is a bit of a weird number that ends up having 100 decimal places? So what we can do is we can just hop in here and actually change this into round bracket, and then sum of this equation, and then add it to 2 decimal places, and then that's the round function here. Now what you could do is you could pull this little arrow down and it will automatically calculate that. So yeah, the zeros are a little bit annoying. So what if I actually wanted to say, okay, well, I only want the number to appear if something has been written here. Like let's say we had electric or something. So we're going to add a little bit of cool functionality here. So we want to say if this cell, H15, doesn't have anything in it, so if we haven't entered an amount, like let's say we haven't entered an electricity cost, we want this cell to be blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear these cells so they're completely empty. I'm going to go and tweak this cell. And what we're going to do is we're going to add an if statement. So in between the equals and the round that we just added, let's just add an if, open bracket, and we want to say if h14 is equal to blank, we want to set this cell to blank. Else, round the sum of h14 to be like rounded to 2 decimal places. Else, do this sum. And then if I just drag this down, it should not show any zeros now until I enter something into h15. So see, it adds it. And I'll just go over that again so you can see what this is doing. So this is basically saying if h15 is empty, make I15 empty, make the cell I've just clicked on empty. And the comma here is like else, so if it's not empty or any other state, do this equation. And that was the equation we had originally. So yeah, that is how you can add this cool thing in. That means that it doesn't add anything until you add another category. Okay, cool. So let's make that a bit more of a realistic number. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is we can go down and do it for this section as well. It's basically just in the reverse. So an annual cost, for example, which is what this section is for, might be something like a car. Now here we want to enter the annual amount, so maybe it's £250, and we want it to auto calculate here. So what we can do is we can say this cell equals this divided by 12. Oh, we have a situation where we have a weird, so yeah, we can go in and we can add the round function again, which is round and then sum of this amount to 2 decimal places. So we can round it. But what if we want to do the same thing? So we don't want to have these zeros again. Let's add that if statement in again. So clear these. If you can see what we put for the if statement, we did it for h16. We're now going to swap this around. So we're now going to say, go in between this little equals and round, I'm going to say if, and we want it to be I27. If I27 is equal to blank, comma, make it blank, else do this equation. Oops, I typed something in wrong, and what did I type? I missed a bracket. So yeah, really important that you get the brackets in. And let's test it. So click it, apply it to all of these, and let's just add some numbers, and as you can see, it's working fine. It's only returning a number here once you have something added here. Okay, cool. Now that is pretty much it for the calculation space. Let's go and add the pot. So if you remember, we added a space for payment pots over here. And basically what I want this to do is for every transaction that I add, I want to specify which pot it belongs in. And that way I can add all my outgoing costs and see how much money I need to put aside for them each month. So for example, if my rent is paid from my bank account, I want that number, for example 850, to show here. So let's go in and add these categories. So maybe this is bank account, so we want all these categories here to be added. So what you do is you click on this and you can actually turn it into a drop down. And I like to go to advanced options and just turn it to an arrow because that's my personal preference for styling. And yeah, let's add the options. So we have bank account, we have credit card, we have the holiday, and we have annual payments. And then finally we have savings. And what I'm just going to do is copy this, and I'm going to delete that and just make this empty, and then put this down on all of these. And this category can be the same, just using my keyboard to do this. So now when you add your payment, I can then pick which category it is. So let's say I pay electric out of my bank account, but then my car MOT, because it's in the annual payment section, the money needs to go into annual payments. Also really quickly, I'm just going to make sure everything is centrally aligned because it really annoys me if it's not. Okay, cool. So we've now added the category section. I think it's good for us to actually just go and paste these across now. So if you copy this and paste it, it should work fine. Excel and Sheets are pretty smart where you can just paste it and let's see it changes the cells to match the ones that you just pasted. And this can be a blessing and a curse sometimes, but for us, this is pretty useful. This is exactly what we want. So yeah, just paste that across. And we're going to do the same for this little bottom one. Paste and paste. Okay, cool. Now we have all our categories. So I think the next thing we want to do is we want to automatically calculate each of these payment pots. So I'm just going to add a little bit of real numbers into the spreadsheet so that we can check to make sure it works okay. We now want to say that, so this is where it can get a little bit confusing. I think this is probably the most awkward calculation to do out of the whole spreadsheet. But I'll show you how to do this. So we want to do a sum, what we call a sum if statement. So we want to say out of, let's start with, we basically want to say out of, can you check this, if this column, see the pot, contains bank account, add this, whatever amount is in the monthly cost. Else don't add it. So we're going to start by clicking this up, and we're going to write a sum if statement. So we're going to do equals sum if this column, so I'll do, this is J14 all the way to J36, so let's go back and click it. So sum if J14 to J36, so it's, as you can see, it's selected it. So we want to say if this column contains, and then add a quotation mark, bank account, and you have to make sure it's written the same way as this category. So yeah, if this contains bank account, add a comma. We want to add the sum of whatever is in this corresponding column. So we want to do the monthly cost column. So that is H14 to H36. So as you can see, it highlights it nicely. And then add a little bracket. I'm going to close that. And as you can see, it's now picked it up. So we've just done that for bank account. So you can see that if an amount contains bank account, it will now add it here. So let's do, what's another example? Let's do food. Let's say it's 1,000, sorry. It hasn't added it here because we haven't added bank account. So if I click credit card or holiday, for example, it won't add it because it doesn't contain bank account. But if I click bank account, it now adds that pot, that amount here. Okay, so that's simple. That's for one column. We now have to do it, that's for the needs section, but now we have to do it across the wants and investments. So basically you want to add onto this equation. So go to the end and you want to click add, and you want to basically write another sum if. Just to make this quicker, I'm going to copy the equation, not the equals, but just from the sum if, paste it again, and change the J14 to be these ones. So for us, it is 014 to 036, and M14 to M36. And as you can see, it's now picking it from the wants. Enter. And let's just change this to bank account. There you go, you can see it's just added it on. Okay, click it again, and now you want to add it for these wants. Add another, and we're going to change this to, okay, so this is T14 to T36, and R14, R2, R36. Okay, awesome. And I have entered an error. Where have I entered an error? Oh, we didn't add the plus. There we go. Okay, so now we've successfully done it. We're across the whole table. It will tell you if bank account is an option, we'll add it on. Okay, great. So now we have it for bank account, but we have to do it for credit card, holiday, annual payments, and savings. And I found the quickest way to do it is just copy this equation from up here, go in to the credit card one, press paste, and you basically just have to go in now and change bank account to credit card. And you basically want to go away and do this for all of those categories. So I'm just going to fast forward it and come back. Okay, so now we've completely finished adding these categories in. I'm just going to check to make sure it works. So you notice savings is 0 here. That is probably because I haven't got anything that's in my savings pot. So if I click savings on a couple of these, as you can see, it's now adding it here, and it actually took that one away from here. So you can see that if I move it from savings to a different pot, it's adding them up pretty well. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're just gonna add it to the annual one. Really quickly, I'm just gonna align these categories to the side. And we basically just wanna say this equals this times 12. But as usual, I just want to add in a round function because I don't like it if we have that weird number. So let's round to 2 decimal places. Okay, awesome. And then just pull this down. You can click that and it should automatically work this out. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I just want to add a little total section to the bottom of each of these. So we're going to just go here, we're going to do a sum, and we're going to do it based off this whole category. And there you go, it gives you a total. As usual, you can add in the round function if you want. Let's copy this and paste. Instead of H, I will change this to I because that is the annual one. So go in here, add an equals, and you want it to be this cell minus this cell. Same thing, equals this minus this. And once again, you can also add in the round. When you add a round, you usually have to add the sum like this. Otherwise it just won't work. So I'm gonna just go in and add these rounds. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, so now we have the leftover amount here and here. And what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to copy these and paste them. Okay, so we've now got through a couple of these. We've now done the income split, which automatically calculates based off whatever you enter here, and it shows you those results. Now, why don't we go in and add the actual percentage? So we've gone in and we've put a target percentage here, right? So let's just enter a salary here, and let's say we want, out of our income, our £2,500 salary, we want 50% to go towards our needs. That's pretty useful for seeing your budget here, but what if I actually just want to show how much I actually am working at? So to do that, if we go down to this new section we just added, so we just have this total here, let's make this a bit more of a reasonable amount. What we want to do is we want to see, based off the total, how how does that differ to our income? So we're going to go here and we're just going to add equals, and we want to say equals this amount divided by the income and times by 100, and that will give you a percent. And for this, and then we can basically do it for these ones as well. So as you can see, it shows you the percentages. If you remember in my first design, I had this as actually color changing. So what I want to say is we want to go in and we want to add what we call conditional formatting. So I want this number to turn green if it's less than or equal to this number here, and I want it to turn red if it's greater than that. So you click on the cell, go to more cell actions, and go to conditional formatting. As you can see, it's automatically turned it green. And what we want to do is we want to now add in a custom formula. So for this cell, click Format Rules and go to Custom Formula Is. And you start with an equals. And I want to say if D11, this cell that we've clicked on, is less than or equal to C11, less than or equal to C11, make it green. I'm going to change this styling a little bit, so let's get rid of the background, and I just want the text to be green. We can pick and click done. So now as you can see, it's turned green because it's less than this amount. Okay, we're now going to add another rule. So click it, and then I want to say custom formula, and I want to put equals. So if C11, is greater than D11, I want it to turn, like, let's say we want to turn red. Okay, we've now picked red. So yeah, if this cell is less than that amount, so let's change this to 30, as you can see it should turn red. Let's turn it back to 50, and as you can see it turns green. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to add in the round function for these percentages. So go up here and then go and enter round and then the sum. But this time, and I usually do it to 2 decimal places, but for percent I'm happy with it being to 0 decimal places. So just add that in and do that for these. Okay, and now you can see that if you change the percent, it will turn green or red depending on the amount. So yeah, I'm just gonna now go in and add this conditional logic to these other cells. Okay, so the next thing we want to add is we want to enter this checker, and this is just to make sure how much money that you enter here has been added up correctly. So this one's pretty easy. This is literally just this cell because it's your target. Leftover, I guess you want leftover to be 0. And then the actual is the sum. So for the actual, I just like to do the actual spending. So this just shows how much you've spent. So I literally just do equals, and then I just do the totals and then add a plus. So each total, whoops. So I can see how much I've actually spent. Okay, and now that we've done that, we can go in and add some more conditional formatting if you like. So see what we did here, we added conditional formatting, which was pretty cool. But you can also add some conditional formatting here. So for example, a good one is for this leftover section. So we can turn this red, for example, if it's less than 0. So go to conditional formatting, and you can say if cell is less than 0, maybe we make it red. So let's say I spent a lot on food. As you can see, it turns red. So yeah, if we want to do this, here's a cool little trick as well. If you want to make this, because this is going to be the same for any of the values in this row, right? Instead of having to enter it multiple times, what you can do is you can click in on the cell, go to conditional formula and see how it says apply range. And you can pick the range. So I can say from H838 all the way over to S38 if I want to. And it will automatically apply that conditional formatting. So let's add in this. There you go. Okay, so we want to add a pie chart which shows all the monthly costs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the category and go all the way down here. I don't need to select the header, and I go to insert and click chart. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a pie chart. And we can just do some customizations on this pie chart, but as you can see, it shows you how much of your bills are split. But this is quite a, it's not the nicest looking pie chart. So you can go to customize and you can just tweak a couple of the things. For example, I like it to have no background, and that is so the number that we entered earlier can poke through. And I also like it to have no border. We can enter the size of the hole. I like this. You can enter a border, again, none. You can add none here, the slice. Okay, so here you can then add colors for each of the slices as you go. So for the sake of this, like, we can click in here, maybe just add some shades of green for this one. There we go, so it's all nice and green themed. And then click on it, and let's say we want to delete the labels. Go to none. And yeah, I think this looks decent to me. So we can add this and put it there. Okay, cool. So then that's a little pie chart which shows what your monthly split is. And because we've made the effort to do all that styling, what I just like to do is I like to copy and paste it. It will show exactly the same percentages, by the way, for annual and monthly because the split is the same. But what you can do is you can go into setup and just change the date range. So for this, it's G to, we're going to just change the date range. So we're going to do G to G, add another, and we're going to make that I to I, and then add this as I to I. And then this way now, it shows you the actual amounts per year instead of it just being the monthly ones. But yeah, let's do this for here as well. Okay, and that's it for this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful and that you're feeling ready to build your own budget tracker. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you all soon.